Okay, hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of On Point EDC. Today we have a cool review for you from channel favorite Kizer. Now, the Kizer brand was founded back in 2012. They're made in China, and their market segment really covers high-end knives to, well, I should say high-end knives with mid-range prices. Now, this particular type of knife is, of course, a frame lock. Some key common characteristics. Design language. When you're looking at a frame lock, of course, it's going to have that Chris Reeve style or the Reeve integral lock, which is an evolution of the Walker liner lock. It has a titanium handle with an integrated frame lock, hence the name Framelock. This particular model is the new for 2019 Yorkie, which is based on the Laconico Custom by the same name. The great thing though is this has a street price of about 160 bucks or 159 depending on where you get it. And I think it's a real gem of a knife. I'm going to be comparing it to a couple other models and just kind of talking about its place in the market and how I really think that they executed just a really top-notch piece for this particular demographic. So with that said, let's go ahead and take a closer look. All right, before we get too far into the review, let's quickly do a wristwatch check. Of course, I'm wearing my Zen 556. The reason I chose to wear this today is because it is akin to this knife in that it is minimalist in design and also pretty small and compact at only 38.5 millimeters, even on my 7.25 inch wrist. Even up close, this thing's gonna look like it's fitting really well. And out here, you can see some people might think it looks a little bit small, but I think it fits really perfectly. It's overbuilt, kind of like this bad boy here. It's a small knife that doesn't need to be built like a tank, but it sure is. This thing's absolutely gorgeous. Feels great in hand. Of course, it does have that CPM S35VN premium steel. Of course, this is US crucible based. I'm sorry, a crucible US based steel, stainless steel. Drop point blade, almost kind of a leafy shape there, as you can see. Really great milled clip here, and I could see that they kind of wanted to mix things up a bit, kind of have the lines follow that frame lock a little bit. I think in some earlier iterations it actually was sporting the exact same clip as the EDC here from MBK, which is also produced by Kizer, and so you can just take a closer look at how they stack up in height and length. You can see it's just a bit smaller in every respect as far as the blade length, the handle length, and then you're getting a little bit more of a curvature, more akin to the Keen as far as the footprint and then the kind of aesthetic that you're going to get versus the more stick shape EDC, which I absolutely love. If you guys are fans of the channel, I'm sure you saw a review of it and you saw that it misfired there. And honestly, I think the action is a bit more dialed in here on the Yorkie. I'm much less likely to misfire on it, and I think it has to do with this particular tab here. Just a slight difference there. You can see a bit more of a contour shape there. Here it's just a bit more of a pyramid, and I think that little bit more, it's just able to get my finger to dig more and kind of get a bit more of a light switchy action there. So really nice. And then another size comparison would be kind of the knife that started it all for Kizer in a way even. So you can see here, this is more of the mid-size carry. This is more of a micro carry. Here I consider this a mini carry. So you can even get a look there, kind of how they match up, how they lay out. Of course, there's going to be a little bit of distortion from the screen for size purposes, but if we go there, you can see. And another knife, I think, that I recently reviewed that is quite comparable, of course, not a Kizer, but it's actually this Quiet Carry IQ, which I think is quite similar in size. As you can see, it's probably would go size-wise right in between, a little shorter than the EDC, but a little bit taller than the Yorkie, but definitely similar, I'd say, philosophy here, though you're probably getting a little bit more chunk versus the more ultra slim nature here. So really cool. I figure I'll get these guys off screen. The most direct comparison, of course, is the Monterey Bay Knives EDC, also an Ray Laconico design based off of a custom, the EDC, and this thing is gorgeous. I love everything about it. The action, though, I mean, it's good. I just have to be a little bit more deliberate. It's not as I'd say just ultimate flipping action. It has the Gemini where you're pretty much never gonna misfire it, and a lot of it has to do with that the flipper tab geometry there is just obviously not quite as aesthetically pleasing, and the finishing as far as when you take a look here and you compare the micro beveling and whatnot, not on the same level. I mean, this is just a higher class, although it's still very minimalist design and still quite organic in its rounded shape and everything. It's more, there's a lot more fine details there. Oh, I almost got my nail there, nicked it. But really beautifully done. I love this knife, but this particular review is for the Yorkie, which I think is absolutely outstanding, and of course a little bit more readily available than the Monterey Bay Knives EDC. But it's smaller. If you really like this design with the hole, of course, maybe you thought the Keen was just a bit too big, and you thought, hey, I'd love something just a little bit smaller. This definitely could be the knife for you. I mean, maybe you couldn't get a hold of an EDC, although they were recently, I believe they were recently restocked. So still take a look at those if you want one. Those are outstanding. But this one is really nice, and you don't have to worry about it as much because these Kizers are a lot more readily available. Now, as far as the dimensions go, it did flash across the screen earlier. This is overall length about 6.125 inches. You got a blade length of 2.5 and a close length of 3.62, and then the weight of only just under 3 ounces at 2.93 ounces, which is pretty light. Of course, this thing is very sharp out of box, as you'd expect, especially with that nice full flat grind there, and then that beautiful stone washed finish. Then, of course, signed Yorkie on here, and then we have Ray Laconico up on the spine, and Kizer logo there on the show side, with this cool hole, which I think was a nice touch, and really unique just to have the single hole there, which I think is really great. Now in hand, really nice ergonomics, fills the hand pretty nicely in your hand, and the nice thing is because of the shape, it can just find its way around, gets locked in pretty easily. You could do different types of holds with it, as you can see. Really nice. Can, even if you want to get a little extra control, you can choke up on it, get some nice little extra control for some detailed cutting, but really just beautifully done. The action is quite smooth. I'd say it's probably in between a little bit of the EDC and the Gemini, not quite as snappy or smooth as the Gemini, but a little bit of above the EDC. I'm sure I could loosen up and lube up the EDC. I just really don't want to mess with it because I just love it so much. I would hate to strip something out, but this action here is really nice and quite dialed in. So the Yorkie is as far as usability goes and kind of the fidget factor, I'd say it comes out, you know, slightly ahead of the EDC, which isn't quite as nice to, I shouldn't say nice, it's definitely just as nice to fidget with. I'd say it's just, as you can see there, that misfire, it's just not quite as effortless. It's not as effortless to, you have to be a little bit more deliberate. You could throw a little, you know, a little wrist twist into it to help that thing fire out. but it's just not on the same kind of, you can kind of shut your brain down and kind of play with it. Of course, this thing does have, speak of the devil, then I misfire it. Has all the bells and whistles there, as you can see. It has the steel lock bar insert, over travel stop. You can't see it here, but this is running on bearings, cage bearings at that. Really simple construction there. Just these two standoffs in the back, and then the pivot pretty much holding the thing together. Really nice. And then I'm sure it has an internal stop pin, which is why you don't see one down in the scales there. Like most of these particular knives that I've handled in the past from Kizer. Really smooth. And then that ceramic ball bearing pivot is just really nice. Very satisfying detent there. Works really well with that light switch style. As far as in pocket goes, it lays nice and flat, you know, although it is a little bit more bulky compared to something that's going to be ultra thin, like you'd find here with your quiet carry, which is going to be a bit thinner. I do like the use of the clip there. I think it goes over and it's a little bit smoother to get in and out, drawing out of your pocket, although it doesn't have the deep carry capability here that you find with the quiet carry. The weight's going to be distributed a little bit differently here. Of course, a little bit more compact and being shorter, but being a little bit wider. But, you know, not super wide by any means. You put this next to a mini grip and it's going to look super thin. And I love the mini grip. That's probably my most carried knife, where my most used knife is probably a Delica 4. So as far as cutting goes, I'm pretty much always cutting with a Delica. And what's in my pocket is 9 times out of 10 going to be a Benchmade mini grip. But then there's knives like this that I just love. Almost for more of the collector appeal there, kind of like my wristwatches. I just love Ray Laconico's designs. I think Kizer's execution is top notch for that price range. You really can't go wrong. As you can see, this beautiful shape, the minimalist aesthetic, the way the light plays on it, you can get a good idea of that finish. And I mean, look at that blade. That nice stone wash, just super clean, great user finish. And I mean, this thing can go in your pocket, go with you, and it's just going to be everything you need at any time, which is great. As far as model variants go, again, you have this model, and then you also have one without the hole that has a little bit of a blue wash to it. That's going to be anodized. It's not a super blue color. It's just more like kind of almost like, have you seen some of the bronzes where you kind of can't tell that it's bronze? It just has that tint to it. It's more of just a blue tint versus this is more of a deeper gray kind of tint to it, very natural titanium look. There's the blue one that just has a bit of a blue hue to it versus being a completely blue handle. And, you know, that's what I consider kind of that micro carry, or probably the larger side of micro. And then, you know, you want to go up to something that's mini sized, would be something like the EDC. Then you want something that's medium sized to be the Gemini. And then if you want that kind of mid full sized piece, you're going to look for the Keen, which has a very similar design aesthetic to the Yorkie here. So if you love the way this thing looks, but you just are like, that is way too small, 2.5 inch blade is not for me. The nice thing about 2.5 inch blade is it's pretty much legal anywhere. And this thing is just, it's just dialed in. This thing's just awesome. Love it so much. Now, of course, the comparables go, you know, you could say this probably is similar to the Kizer Feist a little bit there, as far as the fact that it's really small, but the Feist is a front flipper. Here you have a very traditional flipper tab. But I'd say they could have very similar footprints. And then, of course, the specs are going to be very similar because it's in the same kind of build range for Kizer. And then, or maybe the Quiet Carry IQ could also be pretty comparable. Maybe I'll do a face-off eventually of these bad boys, because they are pretty similar in their kind of philosophy. Here being more on the slim, here being more on the kind of short and stubby. But the whole point is to have that kind of minimalist micro carry, something that can almost disappear in pocket and just feels ultra comfortable in hand. Now the bottom line is the minimalist design and the finishing help this feel a lot closer to a custom, and look like a custom and feel like one in hand. I mean, that's kind of what started it all with the Gemini. I mean, this thing is just the contours, the very minimalist. This isn't shouting at you anything. There's not a bunch of branding and advertising going on the pocket clip or anything like that. That's really what helped this knife feel so much like a custom, but then you're getting it at production prices, and then you're also getting production quality, and as far as specs go, yeah, you're upgrading the steel now, because of course Kizer can buy it in bigger batches than Ray can. So as far as getting it, the S35, boom, and then you're gonna get caged ball bearings. You're getting this nice lock bar insert instead of having to carburize it or something like that, like on the custom model. So you're getting something that's going to have actual benefits over the custom model. But so I mean, they keep working on that formula. And the nice thing is, yes, they can keep the prices down by having this made in China, but the designer is here in the US, and there's plenty of US made knives where they're designed by Australian guys, or guys out of Europe. So I think it's kind of cool that Kizer has made a pretty nice effort to actually feature American knife designers. So that's another part you can kind of tie to support, because you can support Ray Laconico, and maybe you can't afford one of his customs, but you can afford this. So with that said, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked the video, please do hit like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.